16 MPPs booted from the chamber.
We decided we have to step it up, that we have to make it as clear as possible that what this government is doing is destructive, that we reject it. It is a damaging step for the education system.
All on a day with many visitors to Queen's Park, including grade 9 students there for Take Your Kids to Work Day and members from the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation.
Okay. You must leave the chamber.
I will gladly leave, and I'm a teacher for 30 years. You are destroying public education.
All this as the two sides have both been at the hotel where bargaining is happening. Following question period, Education Minister Stephen Lecce spoke to reporters about the government's position.
We'll always be ready and willing to work with any union to get a deal, but we will not accept a strike this Friday or any day.
He says a government team received CUPE's latest offer late last night.
We are under the understanding that we're waiting for a response, but now we're hearing from the minister that if we don't remove our notice of strike, there will be no response.
So what does this mean for parents and school children?
You know, without anything changing, we are on strike until further notice starting Friday unless a deal is reached.
That story from CBC's Lorenda Redekop in Toronto for us. Here in Windsor, we now know the English Catholic Board will be closed on Friday, while the local public board keeps classes going as scheduled. CBC's Dale Molnar reports.
CUPE represents about 400 support workers at the Catholic Board, including education assistants, early childhood educators, and child and youth workers. The education assistants and early childhood educators at the public board are represented by another union, so they won't be walking out. But other support workers will be. However, the public school board reaffirmed today that its schools will remain open. Parents we spoke with at Dougal School are supportive of the workers.
Actually, yeah, I can support every, human rights if it is just belonging to the profession or family. I think, yeah, it's freedom of speech is a cherished right in Canada.
Well, if they're not getting paid enough, I think that they should, advocate for themselves, because the school can't do without the janitors and the support staff. I used to be a support staff worker, not in this province, but if the support staff wasn't in the classroom, it made it double as hard for the teacher to be able to get to each student.
The striking CUPE members will be picketing Tory MPP offices on Friday and are expected to be joined by many of the same union representatives that took part in an Ontario Federation of Labour rally yesterday in Toronto.
So not only are they saying you can't strike, but if you do strike and you do take a political protest, that we will fine you as individuals, as workers.
Spaniolo also represents teachers in the public elementary system. He says they have concerns about the public schools being open Friday without support staff.
As much as we're going to try our best as teachers, we are only one person, and we cannot do the job of multiple people that are not there that day.
Where are we on the list?
Windsor West NDP MPP Lisa Gretzky was among the 16 NDP members that staged a protest at Queen's Park today and were ejected. She says the government's stay-at-work bill disproportionately affects women.
I mean, the government has a $2.1 billion surplus, and they think it's acceptable for these education workers to have to go to the food bank, work 2 or 3 jobs and go to the food bank to feed their families.
Windsor-Tecumseh Tory MPP Andrew Dowie would not comment on the government's legislation, only to say he supports it. Gretzky says she will be supporting the workers at a rally at her constituency office Friday. The education workers also plan pickets at the offices of MPP Anthony Liardi in Amherstburg and Trevor Jones in Leamington. Childcare centres at both boards will remain open. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
The WFCU Credit Union is apologizing after a security breach which impacted about 100 clients, and numerous others were locked out of their online banking accounts. Officials say bad actors targeted weak passwords, like 4-digit passwords. Some clients lost money from Friday's breach, though the WFCU wouldn't say how many clients or how much. WFCU promises that anyone who lost money will be reimbursed. Clients online have expressed frustration and difficulty getting their accounts reset, some considering taking their banking elsewhere. The credit union's president says security breaches are common, and he's confident his team did the right thing to protect all clients. I spoke with Eddie Francis this afternoon.
These are criminals, bad actors as I call them, that set up robots And these algorithms try to prey on weak passwords. Once they find weak passwords, they continue to go, and they continue to hit until you set up a wall. I decided, based on the advice I was getting from my security team, based on the advice I was getting from our fraud experts, that the fact that they were accessing 100 accounts, that there was potential for them to access many more accounts. So the decision that was made in the best interest of our overall membership was to put up that wall right away. And putting up that wall meant the inconvenience of obviously disengaging our members' ability to access online banking. They still had access to their banking through the branches, through the ATMs, through our other network, but those members that had weak passwords, by putting up that wall, it basically sent a message to those algorithms that are set up wherever they're set up by these bad actors, saying that you can't get through this because we've disengaged access. So right now, of our 62,000 members, 100 members we know had access to their accounts by these robo, if you will, algorithms, and those robo algorithms were quickly trying to do what they were trying to do before we stopped it.
And how many people were actually locked out of their accounts?
Again, the decision that rested with me based on the advice of my security and my fraud team was those members with weak passwords were members with weak passwords that we decided to shut down. We have 62,000 members. The majority of them do not have weak passwords. So only those individuals with weak passwords were affected.
There's no ballpark on the number that you can share?
Well, that's a number that I'm not going to share with you.
So it sounds like you did what you felt like you needed to do to protect other clients, but a lot of clients who were locked out of their accounts were frustrated. For some people, it took them a couple of days to get back in. I've heard from people who say that they're considering other banks, and I'm wondering what you say to those clients.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think you would agree. I would certainly hope that the majority of people would agree. I've heard it from the majority of our memberships and our members that although they were inconvenienced, they agree that the steps that we took was protecting their interest. The inconvenience of being able to access online, I understand. And I've apologized for, and I'm sorry for, and our team is sorry for. But people still had access to their banking, whether through retail branch, whether through ATMs, or whether through telephone. They still had access to banking, and they had their funds in their account. That inconvenience, in my opinion, pales to the inconvenience that would have been caused should all of their life savings have been taken by criminals that were bad actors.
Are police involved at all? Any charges, investigations?
Police are not involved.
Okay, why not?
Because you have to identify who the bad actors are. And in any cyber crime, it's very difficult.
Little oversight during the Ambassador Bridge blockade led Windsor Police to make purchases without following procedure. That's according to documents released as part of the Emergencies Act inquiry taking place in Ottawa. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa breaks down police expenses.
Panic buying and an environment of impulse purchases are some of the phrases used to describe how Windsor Police responded during the Ambassador Bridge blockade. This finance debrief document was released on the Public Order Emergency Commission's website. It's part of the Emergencies Act inquiry happening in Ottawa. The debrief says there was a lack of financial oversight during the Windsor blockade, a protest that shut down the Ambassador Bridge from February 7th to February 13th. Both Windsor Police and the Windsor Police Services Board denied a request to comment as a result of the proceedings in Ottawa. The documents reveal that police spent an estimated $5.1 million by the end of the blockade. Some of the biggest expenses include $2.5 million on overtime, $1.3 million on the cement jersey barriers, and more than $500,000 on accommodations for officers. It was called a serious misstep that officers with little to no purchasing experience were made to handle the logistics. And on top of the spending, proper receipts and records weren't kept. Once the blockade wrapped up, there was reportedly limited follow-up to make sure vendors were paid. The debrief recommends that a financial services branch representative be required in future major incidents as a way to oversee spending. In March, the City of Windsor requested more than $5.6 million from provincial and federal governments.
Our federal government needs to step forward and recognize that this was a national economic emergency for which our city responded in the national economic interests of our country. This was an atypical municipal event, and we need to be made whole for the actions that were taken.
Funding has still not come through. There's a motion at next week's council meeting suggesting that the city strongly advocate for that funding. The city now pegs expenses from police at $4.7 million. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Organizers of last winter's Convoy protest in Ottawa continue to testify at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. And today, one of their lawyers also faced questioning. Keith Wilson told the inquiry that protest organizers were getting leaked police information. He also testified that organizers weren't aware of conflicts within the police services at the time of the protest.
We assumed that when information filtered in to the operations center that a raid was going to occur at 9 o'clock that night at this location, that it was real. And then when it didn't happen, the assumption was it was a test, not that there was something happening where different inspectors and forces were in conflict about a plan. We did not. That was all new revelations through this inquiry.
Wilson says the information was coming from a variety of sources, ranging from the Ottawa Police to CSIS. He also distanced himself and his clients from elements in the protest that had been calling for the overthrow of the government, including Pat King. King and protest organizer Tom Marazzo have also been giving testimony today. More than 3 years after it started, the government's system for pardoning old cannabis convictions is being called a failure. One critic is an Ottawa man who lost his job over a conviction for smoking pot more than 30 years ago. Evan Dyer has more.
Chris O'Neill just lost his job over an incident from 33 years ago.
I was 18 years old. I was sitting on the set, smoking a joint with some friends, and a police officer happened to ride by. Stupid mistake, childish.
The teenage O'Neill was convicted of possession and got probation under the old Narcotics Control Act, which didn't specify the charge was for cannabis.
Until last week, I was an operations manager for a records management company.
A company that handles federal government records and requires a security clearance with no convictions.
So when I go to apply for a pardon, they deny it because I can't prove the substance in which I was charged with.
The parole board told him to obtain original court documents to prove it was cannabis, but the records were all destroyed after 30 years.
I'm caught in a catch-22. I'm 51 years old, married, father of 3. I just lost my job at 51.
Nobody should have to go to jail for smoking weed.
In the U.S., the Biden administration recently issued a blanket pot pardon that doesn't require people to apply. But the Trudeau government chose not to grant a general pardon. The parole board told CBC that approach is only appropriate for circumstances where the criminalization of an activity was historically unjust, not for cannabis. The government was expecting 10,000 applications, but has received fewer than 1,000, and of those, 1 in 3 has been rejected, including O'Neill's. Today, governments make billions of dollars from the sale of cannabis, but they still haven't fixed the problems that affect thousands of people like Chris O'Neill. But that might be about to change thanks to a bill that's now working its way through the Senate.
To sequester all records of personal possession for drugs of all kinds within 2 years.
The NDP's Randall Garrison has included an amendment to sequester, basically to hide, all drug conviction records 2 years after sentencing.
Meaning that records for drug possession for all drugs will not show up in criminal record checks.
Garrison hopes the bill can pass by Christmas, but it still comes too late to save Chris O'Neill's job. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Stittsville, Ontario.
Live look outside there, another beautiful sunset. I love seeing that. Now the calendar says that it is fall, but the temperatures seem to disagree. Colette Kennedy will be here after the break with your warm weather forecast. Stay with us. Welcome back. Canadian soccer star Christine Sinclair has soared to new heights. She has re-signed with the Portland Thorns just 3 days after helping the team win the National Women's Soccer League title. A crowd gathered in the city to celebrate the team's 2-0 victory over the Kansas City Current. Sinclair savored the moment, calling it a great day for the women's game.
What you see is just the growth of the league, that each championship seems to mean more, which is exciting. And having been here for 10 years, it's what I always wanted, is this league to just grow and flourish.
Sinclair has been with the Thorns since the team's first season in the league in 2013. She is the team's captain and played in 14 matches this season, scoring 5 goals. And she has helped the Thorns win 3 titles and is the team's leader in games played, games started, minutes played, and goals scored. Sinclair leads all men and women with 190 international goals. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather forecast. But Colette, before we get to weather, I don't know if you remember this from last year, but Chatham-Kent likes to name its snow plows, and it's doing it again this year. There we go. So last year, Anita Shovel and Gordy Plow, they were 2 winners last year. And so now that we know that they're, brainstorming for new ones, our CBC team had some ideas, which I'm going to share with you.
Okay. Anita Shovel's going to be hard to beat, but okay, let's go. I love that.
100%. Snowy Potter, like Harry Potter, but Snowy Potter.
I got it.
Snopey, like Snoopy, And then this one's my suggestion. Snow Your Roll. A little bit dad jokey, but I don't know if any ideas come to mind for you. Feel free to.
No, I am so predictable. I'm the most predictable. If you ask me how to name anything, I always give the same answer. It's like when they did that Bodie McBoat face.
Yes.
So it's Plowy McPlow face. That's always where I'm going to go back to that.
Face.
There you go. I'm always going to go back to that well, I have to tell you. Let's go ahead and get into where we do not need a snowplow and where they do, which would be into the prairie provinces. So mild out ahead of this system. That's why you're looking at Kenora at 19. Fort Frances was a hot spot, at least for a good portion today in Canada, over 21 degrees, and even some mild air, of course, into southwestern Ontario as well. So this is ahead of this system. I'm going to show you what's behind it in just a moment, but just a closer look at our temperatures. Closer to the lakeshore, a little cooler as we develop that kind of a lake breeze. It also tends to push in some of the fog that's been hovering, especially over Lake Ontario, but we see this in Lake Erie too, over towards the eastern end more so at the moment. But again, tonight, that fog development, patchy in nature, but it does reduce visibility. Okay, why am I broadening the perspective? To show you the back edge of this system that's pushing the mild air over the Great Lakes. You see this here, yes, some of the snowfall. In fact, there are snowfall warnings for a good chunk of Alberta and portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba on the backside of that system. In some cases, they're talking about locally 30 centimeters. We get to extend our time in the mild air, dry as well, but we'll see as we get towards the weekend, clouds increasing later on Friday into Saturday, and it looks like the timing is late Saturday for some showers to come through. That's still a few days away, but wanted to give you a heads up that it's still looking pretty good this weekend other than that. 7 degrees for the low tonight with that patchy fog, 19 tomorrow, Friday 21, and there it is Saturday. Not at this time looking like it's raining all day, but just showers developing. Set the clock back.
Oh my
Saturday
gosh.
night.
I completely forgot about that until you just
what
brought
I'm
it
here
up.
for. Put that little icon there.
I dread this time of
Extra
year
hour of
for
sleep.
that reason.
Really?
I'm going to be
I don't
honest.
like the spring. The fall, I do better there when I gain
See, but
one.
I don't like leaving the building at work and then it's already dark. There's no more
fair
light
enough.
out for me.
Yeah, I am with you there. I just want to have my cake and eat it.
I
want the extra hour
understand,
of
but
sleep
it's
and
okay.
daylight.
You're the messenger. It's not your fault. It's all good. Thanks for that, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to go to a Winnipeg drag queen event where protesters showed up to voice disapproval, but supporters were even louder. Stay with us. Welcome back. We have one more story for you before we say goodnight tonight. I want to take you to Winnipeg, where a Story Hour event has become a story of its own. 3 drag queens asked a coffee shop to play host to a book reading. And then about 40 protesters decided to show their unhappiness with the event. But they were met by about 200 people who supported the drag queens and their Story Hour. Here's how it all unfolded.
What we believe is that drag is for everybody. It's a celebration, it's fun, it's for kids when it's for kids, and we wanted to make sure that there was support for that in case those unfriendly folks showed up to share their views.
This is a celebration of love, of drag, of queerness, and we just really wanted to be here to support that. We think it's important.
As a gay father who's married to a husband, it's part of our community, and they're part of the community as well. So, we're here to show support and to have them be inclusive.
Letting them think that they can be a boy or a girl and thinking that this is okay. If adults want to do this at 18, it's fine. But do you think a 5 or 6-year-old need to be around this?
Queer people don't magically appear as adults. We exist at all ages. Some of the kids in here today might be queer, some of the kids might be gender fluid. Some of the kids might just want an opportunity to learn the lesson that it's okay to look the way you want to look, to dress the way you want to dress, to be happy in the person that you are.
Why do you feel that you have to tell parents what they should do with their children?
Oh, that's a very good question. I do not believe this is acceptable around any children. This should be illegal. Do you understand?
These aren't their kids. It's not their choice. They can come, they can protest, that's fine. But in the end, it's not their kids.
It's nice to see that the support on our side is large and on the other side it's quite small. So.
It's so nice to have the community out here and people with their kids outside and their dogs, and we're having an after party out here, it seems like.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can always go to our website. Just go to cbc.ca/Windsor. And we are also on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks for watching and have a great night.